Yesterday's video was really well received by you guys, and many of you actually wanted to know about the other Electro characters and my thoughts on them as well. I hear you, and in this video, I aim to rank all Electro characters after considering the new Dendro reactions. And if you all have any opinions or questions, do leave a comment so we can all learn from each other together. Now let's get on with the video.
Get dicey. By Royal Enhanced Anima Module 75. Absorption test.
Let's start off with an easy one, Fischl. She was in yesterday's top 5 gainers list and she already started from a pretty good base. Pre-Dendro, she was already an insane battery with good sub-DPS capabilities. But now, with Dendro, her Electro application also begins to shine, and in my opinion, C6 Fischl is probably the only character, or rather the closest character, that can rival Raiden at C0, and maybe even triumph her in some comps. Double S tier for sure for me, and is probably one of the best characters in Genshin right now.
No turning back. Torn to oblivion. Absurd.
Of course, naturally now the next character to talk about is Raiden Shogun. Now I have her at C6, so that kind of distorts my impression of Raiden Shogun quite a fair bit. So I don't really actually know the actual numbers and testing her out myself for the changes at C0, and would really appreciate if some of you have experiences pre and post Dendro for C0 Raiden. Maybe you can share with us your experiences in the comments below. It'll be really great for all of us, myself included, to learn from you. After all, this channel is all about learning different ways of playing Genshin. There's no right and wrong way in my opinion. For me personally, a C6 Raiden before Sumeru and after Sumeru feels more or less exactly the same in terms of power level relative to the rest of the bunch. Aggravate buffs other characters more than Raiden, but it still kept Raiden relatively relevant to new teams. In terms of new teams that were created, Raiden still ranks pretty high on most that require Electro application and a battery. Still, in my opinion, Raiden is Raiden, and at C2 or above, I do think that she is still the undisputed number 1 on this list by quite a fair bit. But my guess is that at C0, she might come or compete quite tightly with a C6 Fischl.
Time. The birds call.
Just like we heard.
Quiver. No turning back.
One of you pointed out a very good point. For the most part, if Sarah isn't C6, she kinda is quite mediocre, and I'll rank her at around A or B tier, especially if you don't have her C2. She just is quite clunky and better Electro appliers exist. With C6, she turns any Electro character into a hyper carry, especially with the new Aggravate, and she herself also does pretty decent damage with her burst. For Electro main damage dealers that don't really require a lot of energy recharge from the second Electro, for example like Keqing, who has a low energy requirement cost, or Raiden, who generally already builds very high ER, Sarah is likely best in slot for a Electro duo. I'll rank her as S tier for big PP damage at C6, but A or B tier if you don't have C6, where better alternatives really do exist.
Still in the front. Don't blink.
I was one of those fools who pulled on Keqing's banner way back in 1.2 and was a miserable Electro main for most of my Genshin life. I have her at C3 with Miss Splitter and can confidently say that Aggravate definitely made her relevant again. Her small and flurry of hits playstyle benefited greatly from the additive damage that Aggravate provided. Of course, as a Keqing main, I'll probably want to rank her as a triple S tier in my heart, but logically speaking, a main DPS Electro competes with other characters on this list like Raiden Shogun, and most team comps would favour Raiden over Keqing. I'll put Keqing in A tier because you tend to need to build a team around Keqing to make her work, while other characters like Raiden that are higher on this list are much more flexible and can be built around teams. Although a key point that I want to highlight is that she's definitely one of the characters that saw one of the largest bumps pre-Sumeru and post-Sumeru. But this tier list aims to be broad-based and not just focus purely on one new elemental reaction, but looking across at the many different things that Genshin offers. Here is an interesting one which I think many of you might find fascinating or perhaps even disagree with. But hear me out. People that don't think very highly of Beidou highlight that her kit requires a lot of ER and it doesn't really work with Raiden, and Beidou is mainly only played in Electro Charge comps. While I do agree, and that aside, with the new Aggravate, it creates an interesting new comp for Beidou which massively boosts her already high raw damage numbers from her burst. Beidou's Q jumps many times and gains much more from Aggravate than a unit that has only one burst instance. It's the similar concept to Keqing really. She provides insane amounts of off-field damage, and a combination of two 4-star characters, just Fischl and Beidou, will clear most content in the game quite well. She works okay-ish at C0 and really starts to pick out after C2 once you get the additional jumps in her ulti. I think the community really is sleeping on this character right now because Aggravate Beidou isn't really as popular as Keqing Aggravate or Yeimiko Aggravate. And I'll link a video above and put in the comments below for you guys to see for yourself. For me personally, S tier and not double S tier because she's still reliant on a battery to function. Quite an easy one. Most people already expected Cookie to massively benefit from new electro reactions since her kit scales off EM, and she did quite well. And so far from what we have seen, she really did quite well too. Her kit procs Hyper Bloom very well since it's an AoE around her and offers very good electro application, healing, to run some other more offensive other typing elements in your 2nd, 3rd and 4th slot. I like her best personally with Ayato so far from what I've tested, but generally I find Cookie competes with a similar supporting role as Fischl. Cookie really shines in teams that require more AoE electro application and doesn't need that much energy or a sub DPS damage. Still a solid character overall, but not as impressive as Fischl, and I'll put her on par with perhaps a C6 Sarah or C6 Beidou in the S tier. I'll make the next two real quick. Physical Razor is B tier, didn't really change much since Physical didn't get any real changes from 3.0, and Lisa, this one might take some of you by surprise. Although Lisa is an amazing off-field support with her defense shredding, she still requires a dedicated battery to function. Her Q is insanely difficult to battery, and not many teams require that amount of battery throughout the entire party right now. And most will argue that any of the S tier or higher characters will be much more versatile to play. I personally would rank her in about a low A tier or maybe a B tier, but considering that you could also possibly use her as a Hakushin buffer for a Dendro character, I will probably leave her in A tier for now, but a low A tier, high B tier rating. And yes, I saved the best for last. Yeimiko got significantly better with Dendro reactions, and you guys feel it too. I excluded her from the list yesterday because she was seeing more play than Keqing already, especially if you played Yeimiko in a Raiden team. For those of you who are following this channel since Yeimiko's banner, you might recall that most of us were very passionate about a EM variant of Yeimiko. Fast forward several months and Yeimiko does offer solid off-field electro damage and also good electro application with some EM, which she also scales off with. The main issue with ranking her top few is that Fischl offers a compelling kit at just a fraction of the field time she offers. While C2 or higher Raiden makes Yeimiko work really hard to justify her place as a damage dealing electro unit in most teams, where you can have only one electro character. But granted, there are two sides of the abyss and not everyone has a C2 Raiden lying around, so I'll be happy to rank Yeimiko as a low S tier but higher than Keqing, given that she can be played in a supporting role as well. And if you haven't seen yesterday's video about the top 5 characters I think got buffed the most in 3.0, I do recommend you check it out right here. Otherwise, here are some other good tier list videos which I think that you might like too. Leave a like, subscribe if you found such information and content helpful. See you in the next video.